versus Mineta. Fight! The day Mineta decided to put his hands on you was probably the only time you had ever seen your boyfriend really, truly pissed. You had been having a relatively relaxed school day. There hadn't been any villain attacks, no one had suffered a near-fatal injury during training, and nobody was stressing about upcoming assignments or exams. You had decided to spend one of your rare moments of free time with two of your closest friends in the classroom, Uraka and Asui. The three of you had made plans to spend the afternoon at the mall, and you were incredibly excited to finally get off the UA campus after so long. You were walking out of the classroom, chatting idly with your two friends when it happened. One minute you were giggling over some silly comment Uraka had made, and the next you felt a grimy hand creeping its way under your skirt. With a squeak of surprise, you jumped away from the touch and spun around to see Mineta standing behind you, a sickening grin of delight on his face. Your mouth dropped open in shock and your fists clenched as anger began to immediately bubble within you. However, before you could begin your verbal abuse of the disgusting little pervert, a new hand grabbed Mineta's outstretched wrist. The boy's face immediately went white as he slowly turned his head to see Izuku Midoriya standing beside him, his green eyes dark and furious. "Apologize," the taller boy growled out in a tone so cold it could have rivaled Todoroki's. "Apologize now." Mineta scrambled to get away from your boyfriend, twisting his wrist in a desperate attempt to free himself from the tight grip Izuku had on his arm. His eyes were wide with terror. "I'm sorry!" he squeaked out, and you were struck with how much he sounded like a terrified pig. "I didn't mean any harm, I'm sorry, I swear!" The corner of Izuku's mouth twitched into a deeper frown, and you can tell that he knew Mineta was lying through his teeth. However, you could also see that your boyfriend was very much aware of the odd looks he and Mineta were receiving from passing students. With a scoff of disgust, Izuku shoved Mineta away from him. "Go now," he grumbled out to the shorter boy, who instantly did as he was told and ran for the hills. Then Izuku turned to look at you, and his gaze immediately softened. Gently, he ran his hands down your arms. "I'm sorry," he mumbled quietly. "I saw what he was about to do from the classroom, but I wasn't fast enough to stop it. Are you okay?" You nodded and offered him a soft smile. "I'm okay. Thank you for doing that." Izuku smiled back at you, the familiar shy grin that you've grown to love. He leaned down to kiss your forehead softly. "Of course, Pumpkin. Anytime." You had seen Bakugou angry many times before. In fact, it was uncommon to see him openly express any emotion that wasn't anger. However, the day Mineta decided to try his luck with you was the first day you were ever truly worried that Bakugou might actually kill a classmate. Class A had been working on hand-to-hand combat training for the better part of an hour. And unfortunately for you, you had been partnered with Mineta. Of course, you tried to be civil with him, since you didn't want to make a scene, and thankfully, the pair of you almost got through the entire session without any major incidents. Almost. Looking back, you probably shouldn't have tried that flip on Mineta, but you were so lost in the training that for a split second, you forgot who you were dealing with. Within seconds, you had the grape pinned easily to the training mat, your body hovering above his. Before you even knew what was happening, one of his hands came up to grope hungrily across your chest. You recoiled immediately, a horrified look on your face. At the same time, a loud yell could be heard from the other end of the room. In the blink of an eye, there was the boom of an explosion, and then your boyfriend came flying across the training hall and grabbed Mineta by the front of his collar. "Katsuki!" You barely had time to say before Bakugou hurled Mineta with every ounce of his strength at the nearest wall. Your eyes flew wide open, and for a split second, you thought the smaller boy was actually going to hit the hard concrete and crack his skull open. However, at the last second, he managed to activate his quirk and bounce harmlessly backwards. Bakugou let out a growl that was so animalistic it brought goosebumps to the surface of your skin. His palms glowed white hot and his muscles tensed as he prepared to dive at Mineta and do God knows what to him. Thankfully, before he could move, he was tackled from behind by Kirishima and Sero. Bakugou roared as his body hit the floor with a thud. Immediately, he began to struggle against his friend's grip, literally trying to claw his way across the room to Mineta, who was cowering against the opposite wall. "Let me at him," Bakugou growled out furiously. "I swear to God, shitty hair tape face! You better fucking let me go before I blast both of you all the way to hell!" You scrambled to your feet and ran to your boyfriend, grabbing his shoulders. "Katsuki!" you said in a desperate attempt to calm him down. "It's okay, I'm fine, I promise, please." "It's so far from fucking fine!" Bakugou spat. He was still struggling against Kirishima and Sero's hold. "He touched you. I swear I'm going to peel that little fucker's face off!" "Not to encourage him," Kirishima said, huffing slightly at the effort of resisting Bakugou. "But I agree. The guy is always being creepy and he's never listened when any of the girls tells him to stop. I kinda wish I could beat him up myself," sighed Sero. "He freaks me out." By the time the rest of the class had figured out what was going on, a few of your friends, including Mina and Jiro, had advanced on Mineta, their eyes flashing, while the rest of the group were deliberating going to find a teacher. However, you ignored all of them and set your attention firmly on Bakugou. Sinking to your knees, you drew him into a soft hug. "I'm okay," you mumbled into his hair, feeling the way his entire body trembled beneath your touch. "Mineta is gross and disgusting, and I'd like nothing more than for you to blast him off the face of the earth. But I don't want you to get in trouble." Bakugou sighed heavily, his fist still clenched. However, he stopped writhing and went limp against you. Cautiously, Sero and Kirishima released their grips on him. You offered your two friends smiles of thanks as they moved backwards, which they acknowledged with grins of their own. Then they turned and headed in the direction of the crowd congregated around Mineta, ominous glints flaring up in both of their eyes. Upon seeing them leave, Bakugou buried his face in your shoulder. "Please," he mumbled out. "Please let me punch him. I see him looking at you all the time and I have to do something. It just makes me so angry, the way he treats you. And all the other girls, too." You looked at him in surprise, the pained tone of his voice catching you off guard. You'd always known Bakugou hated Mineta. However, you weren't aware just how deep his feelings ran. Turning your head, you looked over at the way your classmates were circling around Mineta. The smaller boy looked terrified out of his mind, and for a moment, you almost felt sorry for him. Then you noticed how even through his fearful tears, he was eyeing up Yamomo's chest and your resolve evaporated. "Fine." Bakugou stared at you as you released him from your embrace. "What?" "I'm not going to stop you," you glowered in Mineta's direction. "He deserves it anyway." "You mean I can?" "Go for it," you shrugged and pressed a short kiss to his lips. Then you rose to your feet. "Just don't mess yourself up." Bakugou's expression darkened into a sinister smirk, and he crackled his knuckles aggressively. "Oh, fuck yes!" Shoto Todoroki had never been the type to get violent when something upset him. He was, however, the type to get even, which was arguably worse. Mineta had been harassing you for a while. Being the nice human being you were, you tried to remain good-natured about the situation. However, after months of having to dodge his constant remarks and snide glances, he was seriously starting to piss you off. The last straw came when one evening you caught the little creep peering in through your balcony window after having used his quirk to scale the outside wall of the dorm. And much to your horror, he managed to time his attack perfectly so that he was able to get a peek just as you were changing out of your school clothes. Fortunately for you, he also managed to catch you on the day when your boyfriend had been too goddamn lazy to leave to go back to his own room after walking you to yours after school. Shoto raised his head from where it had been buried in your pillow at the sound of your squeak of surprise. Almost immediately, his eyes locked with those of the disgusting grape who had been staring at you with a sickening expression on his face. The world seemed to stop for a second as the temperature in your room dropped. "Angel," Shoto then said quietly, and his tone was so icy you felt your stomach drop. "Could you look away for a second? I need to take care of something." You looked from your boyfriend's scarily calm expression to Mineta, who was still frozen on your balcony, a look of terror on his face. For a moment you considered interfering, but then you remembered that A, Mineta deserved all the pain that came his way, and B, when Shoto had set his mind to something, no one, not even All Might, had the ability to stop him. So you did as he asked and turned away, scrambling to put on the loose t-shirt in your hands as you did so. There was the crack of freezing ice, and then the small squeak from Mineta, then deathly silence, punctuated only by the slow tapping of Shoto's footsteps against your floor. "You alright, Angel?" came the quiet voice of your boyfriend after a pause, and your body relaxed when you felt the soft touch of Shoto's hands settling on your sides. A nose pressed to your shoulder. "Yeah, You gulped and shivered as you remembered the way Mineta had ogled your bra. "I'm okay. He's just so disgusting." "I'd love nothing better than to torture him until he laments his actions," said Shoto calmly into the fabric of your t-shirt. "However, I doubt that would look good on my hero record. Hopefully he won't try anything with you again." "You're kind of sadistic, Sho," you chuckled softly, turning in his arms to face him. "Not that I'm complaining, but sheesh, that was a little scary." "I'm sorry, my love," Shoto apologized, kissing your cheek sweetly. "I was just furious. No one should ever violate anyone's privacy like that, especially not yours." "Thank you," you mumbled to him, resting your forehead on his chest. "It means a lot." "Anytime, Angel," Shoto replied softly, kissing the top of your head. You had expected that doing your work study at the same agency as Shinso would be a dream. After all, who wouldn't want to spend some extra time with their boyfriend while out in the field? Unfortunately, basically holding the position of a sidekick meant that you were obligated to participate with team-up missions with other agencies as well. And more often than not, the other heroes you were forced to work with weren't all that pleasant. You had a bad feeling in your gut the minute you heard you'd be working with Mineta and his mentor on your latest team-up. A bad feeling that only worsened as time passed, and you were constantly subjected to the uncomfortable feeling of your temporary teammates' hungry eyes on you. Thankfully, the mission was over relatively quickly, and you were able to return to the agency with a good few hours of the day left. Flopping down on the couch of the recreation room, you let out a long groan of satisfaction. Shinso chuckled at you from where he stood in the doorway before turning away. "I'm gonna shower," he threw casually over his shoulder as he disappeared from your sight. You barely had enough energy to muster a half-hearted grunt of acknowledgement as your eyes slid closed. You dozed for what could have been seconds or could have been hours, stirring only when you felt the couch dip beside you. For a moment, you thought it was Shinso. However, when you opened your eyes, you were greeted with the very much wrong purple-haired boy. Mineta offered you a sickening grin. His hand slid onto your thigh.
You looked really hot out there today,
he lisped disgustingly.
Did you make your costume tighter?
You inched away from him, suppressing a gag. No, my costume is the same as it's always been, you replied, your tone clipped.
That's weird,
Mineta said, leading forward. You were horrified to see his line of sight was fixated directly on your chest.
I swear I could see the outline of your bra.
Immediately, one of your hands came to shield yourself from his invasive gaze. You shuffled away from him again as your cheeks flushed with both embarrassment and self-consciousness.
It's alright.
Mineta grinned up at you, and you felt his hand return to your leg.
I don't mind seeing that stuff. In fact, I'd like to see
He was cut off when a smooth gray fiber suddenly wrapped around his head, covering his mouth. You whipped around to see Shinso standing in the doorway, his violet hair still dripping wet from his shower. His capture weapon was steady in his hand, the other end restraining Mineta, and his expression was grim.
Don't you dare say another word, you disgusting little creep.
Immediately, you abandoned your place on the couch and moved towards him, your heart beating furiously. Without missing a beat, Shinso met you with an open arm, hugging you protectively against his body as you buried your head in his shoulder. Mineta mumbled out, struggling against the capture weapon. Shinso glared at him with a look that reminded you so much of Aizawa, it was almost terrifying.
Don't even think about trying to escape. You should feel very lucky I'm not allowed to use my quirk on you. Otherwise, I would have told you to walk yourself off a building.
Mineta squeaked in fear.
God, you really are disgusting,
Shinso spat, releasing Mineta from his hold. His capture weapon snapped back in such a way that the perverted grape tumbled backwards off the couch. Immediately, Shinso turned to look at you, his gaze softening. Cradling your cheek in one hand, he let his eyes scan your face as he murmured,
You alright, Muffin?
You nodded and turned to bury your nose in the nape of his neck. The tips of his still wet hair tickled your cheek, but you ignored them, inhaling the familiar scent.
I'm sorry I wasn't here,
Shinso mumbled, glaring at Mineta, who had only just managed to get to his feet.
I should have never left him alone with you.
It's okay, you mumbled back. Can we just go back to school now? I'm tired.
Of course, Muffin.
Shinso kissed your forehead sweetly.
Let's go.
The thought of Mineta attempting anything that he has attempted in this fanfiction with me just made me have like this weird rage bubble in my stomach, and I'm like, ah, bad. I mean, if he did, I would really just be like, I don't need these boys. Let me get you myself. I'ma beat you to the ground, okay? To the ground. Respect women. Respect them. You nasty little grape. Make sure you go support this author. You know, they brought out emotions I didn't even know I had. They did it. You get a golden sticker, okay? Yeah, make sure to go support them. And if you're not into anything Mineta related, don't let that discourage you, because they have a lot, and I mean a lot, of other works that do not have them in there at all. So go check them out. It's in the description below, as well as the music and the sound effects. And I'm Tripper Dog daring you to do it. Yes, I used that card. Now you have to do it. No takey backies, okay? Just go over, support them, you know, drop them a follow. Okay. I hope everyone's having a nice time back at school. A lot of you guys just got through your first week, like me. A lot of you guys got through your third week. Oh my gosh, you guys are troopers. I don't know how you do it. I just got through my first week and I am exhausted. I'm like, man, being social again is hard. And this homework stuff, I don't like it. You can get rid of it again. I don't want it. Yeah, this is crazy. And a lot of you guys are already stressing, I see in the comments. And please, children, no, don't. High school and middle school, okay? They're important. I mean, actually, in middle school, I hated middle school so much. Middle school is just toxic. At least my one was. It was just filled with bullies. And you're in this weird phase of trying to figure out what you're interested in and what groups you want to be in and all of that. And it's just weird. It's sucky. And then you get to high school. In high school, I actually really enjoyed high school. My experience was kind of boring. I'm not into the sports. And I'm not really into any of the clubs. So I kind of just showed up. Did the stuff I had to. I'm in theater, actually. That was fun. I tried out for the musical. Never again. I have realized I'm not made to be in musicals. My voice said no. Dancing, my knee was injured, and I was like limping my way around the stage. I didn't make it into the musical, guys. I made it into the showcase because you didn't have to audition for that. But that's fine. That's fine. Actually, I did get a solo. I had to yell, "Take out your hockey stick and use it as a sword," in a British accent. I really wanted a hockey stick, but they said I wasn't allowed to have it on stage. And I was like, all right, that's fine, I guess. I went on a big tangent. What was I saying? Oh, yes, please do not let high school or middle school stress you out, because it is important, but it is okay to make mistakes on the way. We are all still growing as people, figuring out who we are. And life is complicated and busy. And I don't care what teachers say. We all make mistakes, okay? Turning in an assignment late once, maybe twice. It's fine. It's almost impossible. I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible to be like the perfect student, because I have those kids in my classes. And, oh, man, my heart goes out to them. They work hard. But that doesn't mean you're working any less hard, okay? And stress is so unhealthy. It is so unhealthy. But yet, it just comes. It comes. I stress out so much, and it's not healthy, but you know, it happens. It's okay. We just need to take a breath, relax. I can just go on and on about this, but I hope you guys enjoy this fan fiction. Try not to stress. I hope you got to enjoy yourself a little bit listening to this. Thank you for spending your time listening to this, because you definitely do not have to, but you do weekly, and I'm like, wow, oh my god, thank you so much. So I hope you guys have a good day, night, or whenever you're watching this, and have a great day at school. I know we all look forward to the end of it, and I'll see you in the next one.